Abigail. Your parents and I feel that it might be better if you started school with your own class. This way you can start off the year just like everyone else.
Oh my God, she's back. Hey, what was that name everybody kept calling her last year? Welcome back, Sybil.
My name is Jeremy Woods. You guys ever read The Crucible? Arthur Miller? Abigail Williams. This is the villain of the play. It's a great, great, great part. It's a difficult part. Anyone want to try to tackle that? I'm gonna have to go with the namesake, Abigail.
Found that paper.
Abigail.
Thanks for doing this. There's not really anyone else that I'm close to.
I don't have anyone that I'm really close to either. I'll do the scene with you.
What if I told you you wanted someone quiet? I just kept running fast away from my coming path.
You can pick me up tonight.
Oh, child, you got that lion in you. Let me lay you down.
What are you doing? Get out! What is this?
He said, oh, child,
Why didn't you pick me for that part? Why did you pick her?
Let me lay you down.
You know she was in a psych ward for like 6 months, right? He doesn't know, does he? Shut up.
You know what? Don't tell me how to talk to you. At least she's not obsessed with some pedophile. Do you really not see that she's just jealous?
Everybody, please welcome from the film Blame, we have writer, director, star Quinn Shephard here, Nadia Alexander, Tessa Albertson, Luke Slattery, and Sarah Mezzanotte. Round of applause, everybody. First things first, you wrote, directed, and starred in this when you were 20 years old.
Yeah.
What gives you the right? How did that happen? How did the whole thing work out?
Well, that would be a very long story.
Got like a fair amount of time here.
I'll give the short form. I started writing the film when I was 15, so it has been a while in the making. I got more serious about it and started kind of preparing to shoot the movie when I was around 18 years old. My mom and I produced the film together, so it was very much a two-woman job. We spent pretty much those 2 years working out of our living room and just kind of devoting ourselves full-time to getting the film off the ground, and then shot the movie for 19 days and spent the next 1.5 to 2 years finishing the film and doing all the music and the post, and yeah, so it's been a journey.
You're one of those kids who gets along really well with your parents.
Yeah.
Like, good for you, that's amazing. Even in the process of making a feature film where you and your mom, did you ever butt heads?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's just like normal, like I think anytime you work with someone that you're really close to, there's gonna be like kind of normal hurdles. But the good thing is that we have a really similar creative taste, and we always have. And so, you know, my mom was also the casting director for the film, and we've just always had like very, very similar creative visions. Like, we'll watch a movie and we'll both have the exact same note of what we think is wrong with it. And
what's the movie that both you and your mother saw and were maybe thinking about that movie in terms of the tone of Blame?
Oh my God, there's so many. I think my mom started showing me really great, kind of iconic cinema and high school films when I was really young. Like, instead of, I don't know, she was showing me Heathers when I was like a teenager, and films like American Beauty, and even like Hard Candy, and kind of these crazy films with really strong female characters in them. And, you know.
So do you have that weird thing as a young person where all of your peers have nostalgia for like kids movies and you have nostalgia for kind of adult movies?
Oh, 100%.
I have that, no, because I have that too, because kids will be like, oh, I loved like Care Bears or something. I'm like, I loved Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, I was like only Miyazaki films as a child, so like that was my, and like none of my friends watched those films. They were like, "What's Kiki's Delivery Service?" I was like, "The best movie ever," but I was more into that than Disney princesses.
So you write this film, you and your mother produce it, and I have to ask you guys, what was it like being directed by a peer? All of you are, you know, you're young actors. You've been in a lot of projects. I'd imagine most of those projects were directed by men over 45. So what was it like working with, really, not just a peer, but a woman as well? Nadia?
It's super empowering, I think, and it kind of levels the playing field for everyone on set. You know, it brings a certain comfort, especially given some of the more kind of sexual matters that this film deals with. That's really uncomfortable sometimes to be doing, even with a really nice 45-year-old man, because it's still, the levels of power are different. And with Quinn, everything just felt super easy, and it also, she is so amazing both as a writer and a director that she's not super precious with her script and let us kind of come in and we change stuff on the day. I mean, we would do rehearsals and go, that didn't work, let's rewrite the whole scene. And I think that was the sort of flexibility and comfort that comes from being directed by a young person who's also super duper talented.
I would also imagine those scenes that you refer to, those sort of the scenes with sexual situations, when it comes to having someone that is not a peer, that is not also a woman, there is a level of trust that you don't have with that person, because they're never going to be in the place that you're in terms of how exposed you feel or how you might feel going through the scene, where there's sort of a natural empathy that I bet Quinn brought to directing those scenes.
It was always kind of funny because by the time we were shooting all of your sex scenes, sort of sexual scenes, I had already done mine. And so I was just sort of always operating under the idea that like I don't make any actresses do something that I wouldn't do or that I haven't already done in the film.
Yeah. And so that was how did that work out when you were directing them?
Well, I think you two should talk a little more about that. Also, Luke can chime in. Guys can feel objectified too.
Yeah. Did you feel objectified?
No, not at all. I thought, well, Quinn just created this atmosphere that felt really safe and let us, like Nadia said, she wasn't precious with her words, and so we were allowed to improv. And, you know, when you go up on a high wire like that, you can feel unsafe and like you can say stupid stuff, and that wasn't present, that fear in the back of my mind. But, what was the question?
I think we were just riffing off of the sex scenes conversation.
Well, it's totally, sex scenes are like really weird, and there's a big camera in your face, and you're doing it over and over again, and it's, you know, but the set was closed, and, you know, I felt all right. I hope you did too.
Luke Slattery, I felt all
And
right.
amazing if this was the stage where you admitted to not feeling okay with this.
Yeah.
When I had something to tell you.
Actually.
Tessa, you were nodding when I was talking about being directed by a peer. What do you want to expand upon that?
Well, I for one had no sex scene. I think I was the only one out of us that didn't have to do that. But you know, I think it was really special that this is actually very close to Quinn. This is like, you know, this is a high school story. It's not a family drama where I think a lot of us have played children in movies before, which is already kind of alienating, especially if most of the cast are adults and the director is an adult. You know, you were just kind of inherently treated like younger than everyone, you know? And to have Quinn, actually, we were shooting in her high school, the place that she went to high school, and it just felt like who else should be telling this story and directing us and giving us these words and giving life to this story than someone who was 20 years old and wrote this from the time that she was 15. So just, I really felt at no point was I like alienated in the way that you can sometimes feel when you're like the youngest person in the cast.
Yeah. What was the hardest part about directing the film for you?
Also performing in it. I mean, I think that, honestly, it was just a joy working with everybody in the cast because everyone just came and put themselves on the line and was kind of so vulnerable for me, which was amazing. But I think just the biggest challenge was when I was not able to necessarily be as detail-oriented as I like to be when I was behind the camera because I was in front of the camera and couldn't pay as much attention to the performances as maybe I would if I was just sitting watching it on monitor. I think I underestimated just some of the challenges that you have when you're directing and acting. I knew it was going to be hard, but I also, like, you forget, like, oh, I'm going to be in hair and makeup when I really need to be at my morning production meeting. Like, there's just so many things you don't think about. And
is that a scenario where you kind of learn how to delegate and sort of trust maybe that your mother can go to some of those meetings as well because she's a producer on the film, or your DP and stuff like that can?
Luckily, I really had a creative team, you know, all of the creative crew on the film as well as my mom, you know, were people that I really could trust. I just think it was also, we were spread so thin, and we really were just kind of two people running this crazy show, and then we had, you know, our cast and our crew, and everyone was just sort of trying to do their best to handle their job. So I think in that case, it was difficult sometimes. I felt like I could have been a better producer if I wasn't performing as well. But you know what? I'm happy with the final product.
I cannot believe that we shot this in 19 days.
No, I mean,
like, hearing you say that just now was shocking to me. I feel like it was like 6 weeks or something. Just like the amount of stuff that we were able to accomplish in 19 days.
Insane.
I was just about to ask that, and that's insane. I mean, really accomplished, and you are an accomplished filmmaker now, but people who've made numerous films come on this stage all the time and complain about shooting stuff in 30 days. What was it like getting through that schedule?
Well, it was tough. We prepared a lot ahead of time. My DP and I mapped out every shot in the film in like 2 weeks leading up to the shoot, so that when we got to set, there didn't have to be a discussion about the cinematography. So we already had that planned out. And I think, I mean, I'm sure you guys can speak a bit too. I tried not to make the actors feel rushed. I'm sure there were days where it came through a bit, those of you who knew more what was going on behind the scenes. But I think I did my best to put up a protective wall between the actors and the craziness that was going on behind the scenes.
I think you also did a really great job just talking about pre-production of, like, you know, Quinn kind of set up these bonding sessions for us so that we all felt really comfortable with each other, so that when it came time to be on set, it wasn't as if we weren't comfortable just jumping in together and doing the scene.
What did a bonding session, what did that consist of?
So, like,
we went on a friend date.
Yeah, Sarah and I play like best childhood friends in the movie. So we like spent an afternoon, very romantic, walking on the High Line. Yeah, and then we had dinner together, like all 6 of us, like a week before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, for the photo shoot. We did like all of the, and then I had to shoot all of Nadia's like funny, because you two did like friendship photos for the locker, and then we had to do all these like crazy party photos with you guys, and like I had to do all your like sexy selfies, so like there's a lot of like me standing over Nadia on a bed where she's like laying there, and we're getting the photos that are seen in the
My favorite is there's that little clip where I'm kind of unzipping my dress, and you can see I'm sitting in front of a computer, and we had to actually take those photos, and we did it the very first day at the end of the shoot. And it was at her grandmother's house. That was my house, was her grandmother's house. And I'm in my underwear doing all these like sexy poses, and we were doing them with the photo booth. And you've just seen a couple of them. Quinn is looking over to make sure that, you know, the frame is right. And you just see her ball cap sticking out, like one eye, and me being like,
and then my grandmother walked in. And she had no idea what was going on, because she had not like been there when we were shooting the scenes. And she was just like, "What you guys doing?" And it was very funny.
How did she handle it? Did you have to explain, like, this is for the movie, Grandma, don't worry about it?
I think she was prepared when we dressed the set a few days before, and there were just like photos of shirtless boys all over the walls, and there was like a bong in the corner, and she was like, "Oh, I know what's coming," I think.
How did you go about casting, getting like Chris Messina and Tate Donovan in the film as well?
Oh, well, Tate's a friend of mine. We had done a series called Hostages together, and he knew Chris like a little bit. They had done a film together. But honestly, I didn't know Chris at all. I was friends with a few people who said he was like an amazing guy to work with, but my mom and I had really wanted him for the role for years, ever since we saw him in Away We Go, the Sam Mendes film, which he's incredible in. And so we were just sort of like dreaming of him playing the character, and he had no idea. And so finally, when we actually got down to casting, decided to write him a letter and just kind of go out on a limb. And I couldn't find anyone who had his email, so I got someone who had his wife's email, who, if you guys don't know, is Jennifer Todd, a very huge film producer. She's amazing, like Oscar award winning. And so we got an email to her that said, like, please send to Chris Messina, and was basically just a love letter of how much I liked his films and how much I loved his performances and how right I felt that he was for the role. And yeah, he called me in like 3 days and said, sure, like, let's talk. Maybe we can work this out.
What was it like for you directing those that weren't your peers? Some of these, like Chris and Tate and older actors that are in the movie.
I was super nervous about it, but honestly, like, everyone was, I mean, Chris Tate was on set for like 2 days and he was wonderful, but we already knew each other, so I think it was just we like made a lot of jokes and it was pretty fun. Chris was so dedicated and I was so nervous because he was one of my favorite actors. And I mean, he was calling me for like months leading up to the production every week to go over character notes, to go over scenes. You know, we would improv together. We like met up at one point when he was in New York. He bought his own wardrobe. Like, it was just amazing because he wanted to be on a set where he would have freedom to improvise and to be able to like help with the scenes. He also has directed a film, so he really wanted to be on a set where he had power, but at the same time, he was totally respectful of my vision. Like, if I gave him a note that he didn't agree with, and we discussed it, ultimately, he'd be like, "You're the director, I trust you." And it was just amazing. He treated me like I was any other director that he was working with, like not like I was below him in any way, which was really cool.
Yeah, I imagine that's incredibly empowering and leads to a really healthy set. You don't have any actors there who are like, "Come on, kid."
No, and I was so scared of that. And I think I was nervous of it both with the adult actors and with people my own age in a different way. Yeah. You know, like people my own age being like, why am I being directed by my friend, sort of. And then people who are older just being like, I've had so many more years experience, but everyone was so respectful.
If you saw the way that like Quinn was on set, there was just like an energy that was coming from her. You were like, okay, she knows what's. I mean, even if like even if like she didn't know what was happening, it seemed like she knew what she wanted to accomplish. You know?
Yeah, she seemed so much older.
Yeah.
It was like a week or something into the production, we all went out for like Mexican food at the end of the night, and we were ordering margaritas, and you're just like, all right. And Quinn's just like, hey, can you get me a margarita? And I'm like. Yeah, like you can get a margarita, and then it became evident that she was not 21, and we were all like.
But like,
yeah,
I feel like that
shocking.
enough is like if there is this 20-year-old woman, a young woman, I don't want to call you a girl, who like is getting stuff done on set, like she has won the everyone should give her credit for that.
You should also give her credit because you made a great movie. Yeah. You did an amazing job on this film.
Thank you.
I have to ask, as a 20-year-old making movies and for lack of a better word, content in this space right now, how hard is it to stay positive about the fate of movies? I mean, it's amazing to meet a 20-year-old who grew up watching Miyazaki and knows sort of like film culture and the language around film, which many times feels like the other generations, younger generations than me, don't care about less and less.
Yeah, it's hard, but I also think there's an evolution going on with independent cinema and also with TV that we didn't have before. Like, I think a lot of people are migrating into television projects that maybe were these amazing auteur directors because they're seeing more freedom in television, actually, to sort of express their vision and make this statement and have this beautiful project that spans over a longer period of time, where there used to be that same freedom in film. And I think, it's more and more divided between big budget cinema and independent films. But yet, I think it also speaks to something that all of the movies that are Oscar contenders right now are independent films.
Are you going to move into TV? Have you been pitching
I
TV
do
shows?
have a TV project coming up that unfortunately I can't say anything about.
Are you directing this TV project?
Yeah, I'm writing and directing.
Amazing. Let's get some questions from our audience. Who has a question?
Hi. So you said that you filmed in the school that you actually went to. Is it like weird kind of going back to where you went to school to film something where you are a student?
Oh yeah, but it was also great because I hated being in high school, and then I got to go back and be like, I'm running this show.
You literally had like Abigail's fantasy of like being able to come back and be like, fuck you, everybody, I'm directing a movie here, and you're not a part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Next question.
Hi. So, as a fellow screenwriter and director, I think this is very inspiring to see somebody making something that they're super passionate about for many years and actually getting it out there. So thank you for that. And my question is, how did you get the film distributed?
Well, we were bought for distribution after Tribeca. So most of the time with an independent film, you premiere first at a film festival, and then when you're at the film festival, you use a sales agent who will represent the film and talk to a lot of different buyers, and then eventually the film gets bought. So in our case, we were bought by Samuel Goldwyn, and they're the people who will be releasing it in theaters.
There it is. One more question. Right
Hi. So you mentioned there was some improv or some changing of the lines up. For as an actor, do you prefer when there's the script is like completely solid, or when you can like make changes either on the day or beforehand?
I think what was beautiful about this script is that it was already a finished product, and it was like a beautiful blueprint already. And then to go in and have a director who's like, okay, but now you can improvise if you want, or if you feel like something's not working, let's talk about it. So sometimes if you're just improvising, you're like walking around blindfolded, but we had such a beautiful like roadmap already.
I also think it depends a lot on the type of character that you're playing and how close that character is to yourself, because I think pretty much everyone in the film, all the actors are relatively close to their characters, or maybe close to who they would have been in high school, except for me. I'm super, super different from Melissa, so for me, improving was exceptionally difficult, because naturally when you improv, you're gonna sound more like yourself because you're thinking on the fly and you're gonna go with your natural instincts. So for me, I would end up sounding goofy and making a lot of sarcastic jokes and funny faces, which is
You were the only person who didn't improv.
I really, basically, I just sort of would sit there and kind of nod and do that. I would do a lot of physicality stuff, but if I opened my mouth, it was not so good. So I let these geniuses improv, and I just sort of stood there.
You're right about that. I think, yeah, it's not even that they were necessarily the characters, it was that they weren't necessarily changing their entire mannerisms. Like,
Right.
you guys drew from yourselves to the characters, and I feel like Nadia had such a wild change with the character. She was playing something that was so the opposite that it became very, and also I didn't improv at all because I had very few lines. But occasionally me and Chris would, but it would mostly be improv, like, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Very like.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, because I feel like with Melissa and Abigail, your lines were like so precious. Like whenever I had scenes with you, Nadia, I felt like your lines were so cutting. Yeah. You know, like they were very mean words, which I will not repeat live. But like that's all. You know, like you didn't really need to improv in the same way that like felt very natural for like my character, Sarah or Luke. You know. But for you, it was like you just had like one sentence that was like so insulting that there was no need
I could have
for
never
ad-libbing.
thought of those mean lines on my own.
Well, that was just
Which
between
I
us,
think is
you
a good
know?
thing.
Yeah.
Guys, the film's fantastic. Congratulations. How can people see Blame?
Okay, so the film will be in theaters. It'll be playing at Village East in New York, as well as 9 other cities on January 5th, and it will also be released day and date on Amazon and iTunes.
Fantastic. Guys, give them a round of applause for the film. Thanks so much.
Thank you.